Hello, welcome to the Second Coming of Unbelief. I'm in a different room. Um, and I want to talk about why we write. Because why we write goes absolutely into how we understand what the Bible is saying and what the Bible is not saying. So I'm an English teacher, and I teach writing. And we always write to somebody, and we know that it's going to be read at a specific time, and we have a reason for writing. If we write an essay for English class, we know the teacher. We know the teacher is going to read it maybe over the weekend, maybe after class, and we wrote it with the purpose of getting a grade in the class. If you write a message in a bottle, you maybe don't know who's going to pick it up and read it, but you hope they have the capability of coming to rescue you. Okay? You don't know how long the bottle is going to take to get there, but you hope somebody will come and rescue you. If you write a diary, you either write to yourself so you can go back and remember what happened this last year, or there's a diary for your grandchildren to discover. I may not plan for what I write to be read 2 weeks from now. Not a specific time like as an English class essay, but my diary is still written for, I can look back on after a set amount of time, or I can conceive that I will have grandchildren. That's pretty normal for humans. And so I can conceive that I will have grandchildren, and they will discover my diary, and they'll read about me. And the Bible is the same way. The Bible was written to be read by a certain audience. Okay? It was written to someone. It was written to be read to that specific audience. And it was written with a reason in mind. And so, what do we do with? How do we understand the Bible? Let's start with the Old Testament. Okay? The first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. We were told as children that Moses wrote these books. But we know from archaeological evidence that the Hebrew language really didn't get going until about King Hezekiah's reign. And so all the things that happened before were written after King Hezekiah's reign. Okay? Because the Hebrew writing script did not exist before that time. So who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? As near as I can understand, the Jews were carried into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar, and while they were in captivity, they came into contact with other people groups from other nations here and there, and these other people groups had oral traditions that went back thousands of years and could explain for creation, how we got here, the ages of the patriarchs, the exploits of the kings, and all the successes and marvelous deeds of the ancestors. And the people from Judea did not. And so, either slightly before or during the captivity, and most certainly after Cyrus let the Judeans go back home, they started writing. And it wasn't just one person. It was a group of literate people. Not everybody was literate. But it was a group of literate people that sat down and said, hey, we need a reason to be. Why are we different from everybody else? And they didn't have that. So they started cutting and pasting. And it's very obvious to biblical scholars who are acquainted with biblical languages that some things have been cut and pasted. And even for an English teacher, it's pretty obvious that some things have been cut and pasted. There are two accounts of creation. The story of Joseph. There's a couple different ways it could have happened. So we need to know why the world was created for the Jews. We need to know why we're not still in the Garden of Eden. Because Adam and Eve, it's all the woman's fault. They probably did see some evidence of dinosaurs. And maybe they needed to account for that. Maybe they had seen some floods. And they were pretty terrible. But, and before I forget, the people that were compiling and cutting and pasting the book of Genesis did not think of the way that we think of. We're thinking if there are only two people on earth, Adam and Eve, and they have two sons, who are the sons going to make babies with? They didn't think of that. I'm just cutting and pasting and putting myths together. And then God destroyed everybody in the flood, except for Noah and his three sons and their three wives. And hey, everybody's marrying cousins. And that wasn't thought through, because that wasn't important to the narrative, the agenda that needed to be written down. They wrote down what they thought to be a good reason for them to be. God called Abraham out. And all the stuff that went on with Joseph and going to Egypt and coming out of Egypt as, being former slaves, all that stuff, to make them look like heroes, to make them look like the oppressed and the eventually victorious overcomers. Now, today, in 2024, we think if somebody writes things down, a story of an event, we expect a newspaper journalist to write down, first this happened, then this happened, or maybe a TV journalist with a video camera. But the Bible was not written by newspaper or television journalists. And we cannot expect the stories to be exactly as we read them. It is wrong to have the expectation in 2024 that the Bible was written the same way that we would write things down in 2024. It wasn't. It was written down after the Babylonian captivity. Things in the first five books of the Bible are exaggerated. Nobody lived 900 years. And there were other people on the earth. There may have been an Adam and an Eve, but there were other people for Cain and Abel to marry. I mean, the mark of Cain, dear God, I killed my brother. Now everybody else is going to... Who is everybody else? So God put a mark on Cain so that people wouldn't kill him. Who? Where? What people? Can't be his little brothers and sisters. So that was not meant to be a newspaper journalistic type of story. And it never was important until the Enlightenment and the scientific age, and we started writing things down in a style of newspaper journalism. Okay, so that's my point today, that the Bible is not written in a newspaper journalistic style, and we can't expect the stories to be written for anyone other than who they were intended for. They were intended to be read by the Jews after the Babylonian captivity, and they had an agenda. We need to make us look like the good guy. Who, what, when, where, why. Okay? I will stop here, and we will have another video later. Bye.